In this lecture, in this presentation, I'm going to touch on risk management. But before we get to risk management, I need to review some fundamental principles that essentially brings meaning and clear understanding of the role of risk management in successful project execution. Uh, so in project management, we highlight the importance of planning, analysis, design, implementation, deployment or maintenance, and support. These are fundamental pillars of how we approach project execution, project development. So often when we talk about planning, we are referring to the sequence of steps, knowledge, tools that we leverage in addressing a problem or a challenge. And this involves formal processes that are designed to ascertain the specifics of the goal, get into scope. We talk about costs or budget, technology, resources required. Analysis, we begin to actually get deeper into clear understanding of what the problem, the challenges, and then design, of course, we begin to propose, not solve, we begin to propose. Very big difference. We begin to propose concept intervention in terms of the solution. And so often you hear about architecture, solution architectures that are presented as options for the solution. And then we go through a series of that kind of design analysis to eventually settle on a solution of interest. That leads into implementation, and that entails constructing, executing, developing the solution that has been selected, and of course, then at the end, maintenance, deployment, use, end of life. Essentially, that captures, in a nutshell, what the life cycle would entail. In some literature, published literature, you may also see the waterfall model for systems development. It fits the same concept of the life cycle as we walk through and talk about in project management. And the waterfall, the gated approach, as others refer to it, because it has this restrictive element and dimension to it, begins with defining the requirements, which leads into the design, the build, the test, and integrate, test and use, implement, and maintain. It's the same fundamental construct for project execution. I'm going to go slow on this particular slide, this particular discussion, what we essentially refer to as project infrastructure. And the PIM book has a very elaborate guidelines on what this entails. Well, permit me to submit that every organization, entity, enterprise, company out there has a vision and a mission. Organizations by design, companies begin with very clear vision as to what they want to do, to change the world, to make an impact, to make money, to assist communities, name it. And this vision drives institutional mission. The mission in turn is supposed to drive or inform organizational strategy. Organizational strategy is then what gives rise to implementable programs and projects. And those programs and projects have to be informed by what we call measurable organizational value. In some circles, essentially measurable goals. Do not have projects or programs and projects without clear, measurable, anticipated end results, essentially. Some published literature will refer to this as the measurable organizational value. In other words, every executable project, every project program that you execute must have very clear, measurable organizational value, tangible, that can be mapped directly to the organizational strategy. Organizational strategies in turn should be able to be mapped to the mission and subsequently the vision. This is a fundamental concept to grasp if you really want to go far with program and project management. To the right-hand side, you have this MOV, measurable organizational goal, measurable organizational value, measurable, name it. Essentially, the emphasis is on goals, values that can be measured. And the graphic on the right-hand side depicts the MOV being held in place by four pillars. And those pillars are scope, schedule, budget, and quality. What this is saying is these four pillars, I really, really like this graphic. Essentially, it's depicting the fact that these four pillars, the legs of this pyramid, holds the MOV, the measurable organizational value, or the measurable value of the project in place. Essentially, this is why, and in many instances, you will find programs and projects being managed or being so focused on scope, schedule, and budget, the triple constraint. Quality, of course, comes in as one of the key pillars of this pyramid. You would also find out that when we talk about project infrastructure, we're also talking about MOV, project objectives, governance, structure, project charter, resources, and it goes on and on and on, including all the resources needed with margins, physical space, laboratories, vehicles, landing strips, in some instances, airports. Project charters tend to capture the required infrastructure for execution. That brings us to something very important, which is defining and managing scope. Managing scope entails, or planning for scope management begins with defining, verifying the boundaries of the work that has been given.